Today we explore how avoidant men protect themselves in relationships. Imagine, if you will, a man who appears as a fortress on a stormy night, not to repel danger, but to guard his most private chambers against the unforeseen onslaught of vulnerability and emotion. This is the story of the avoidant man, a careful craftsman, employing elaborate defenses to insulate his inner world so as to never be fully seen or hurt. Allow me to guide you, in a measured yet resonant tone, through the intricacies of his behavior, his defensive maneuvers, and the paradox of his existence. In relationships, avoidant men often present themselves as cold or unapproachable, much like a distant lighthouse that, while visible, offers little warmth or invitation. They are the masters of masking vulnerability through detachment and calculated responsiveness. When questioned on how they appear to their partners, many might confess, with a certain wry self-awareness, that they are good listeners, and yet not so great at containing their inner turmoil. In the avoidant mind, emotions are akin to unruly guests. Once you allow them in, they clamor for attention and disrupt the rigid order carefully constructed over years of solitary deliberation. Consider a scene. You're having a quiet moment, and your partner, feeling exposed by a recent slight, approaches you, seeking an empathic ear and an open heart. Instead of offering comfort or shared pain, the avoidant man responds with dispassionate logic. "Are you all right? Suck it up and get on with life." Such blunt responses are not born of cruelty, but rather a deeply ingrained self-dialogue shaped by years of internalized narratives. A voice that insists on stoicism and dismisses the messiness of feeling. It is as if the avoidant man, conditioned by his past, has convinced himself that emotional distress is a personal failing, a state to be corrected swiftly by mere willpower. This internal rhetoric can echo the harsh admonishments he offers himself and others alike. When his own performance falls short, he might think, "Pull it together. Suck it up." But such a mantra, while designed for discipline, often leaves in its wake a barren landscape of suppressed emotion, a fortress with barren courtyards where no genuine connection can flourish. This is the paradox. In attempting to protect himself, the avoidant man inadvertently constructs barriers that isolate him from the very intimacy he might secretly crave. I recall an anecdote from years past, of a friend who embodied these defenses to a remarkable degree. In one instance, he was confronted by a partner whose tears betrayed years of pain. Unable to bear the raw, unyielding display of vulnerability, he retreated further into himself, dismissing her emotional outpouring as an inconvenient disruption. When challenged on his apparent lack of compassion, he retorted, somewhat logically, "If it didn't happen the way you describe, then perhaps these feelings are more about perception than reality." Such rationalizations, intrinsically cold, are a common refuge for those who have learned, perhaps too well, that emotions are both unpredictable and dangerous. Yet, beyond these seemingly heartless retorts, there is another layer to this protective mechanism. Avoidant men, for all the aloofness they exhibit, are often deeply sensitive to criticism. They possess an acute awareness of their missteps, readily admitting when they are wrong. However, this admission is typically reserved for the objective realm, a measured calculation of facts devoid of the subjective pain that accompanies emotional authenticity. They are adept at offering apologies, but these apologies might lack the tender modulation required to soothe a wounded heart. Their intent is clear: to restore a semblance of order without ever venturing into the unpredictable domain of shared sorrow or joy. This all brings us to an essential truth. The avoidant man is perpetually caught in a delicate dance with discomfort. To him, emotions are not the currency of intimacy, but rather the signs of impending peril. When confronted with tears or the raw expression of hurt, he experiences a surge of what can only be described as social pain, a reaction so visceral it seems to reverberate in a distinct part of his brain. The anticipation of this pain can, at times, be so overwhelming that it triggers an automatic retreat, a cold dismissal of the other's suffering, in the hopes that by doing so, he can sidestep the potential for mutual emotional devastation. Interestingly, this dynamic often plays out like an elaborate game of testing. The avoidant man is not passive. Rather, he is a strategist well-versed in the art of emotional provocation. If he senses that his partner might be challenging his carefully maintained distance, perhaps even demanding more vulnerability than he is comfortable providing, he may well initiate a subtle form of testing, a deliberate provocation intended to gauge the other's commitment or reaction. It is a paradoxical interplay. His own guardedness begets a need to test, to confirm that the other party is indeed as stalwart and resilient as he must be for the relationship to endure. In one vivid illustration, consider how he might respond when his partner hints at the possibility of deepening the intimacy, only to recoil when the conversation veers into the territory of true emotional exposure. His immediate retort might be a resigned, "I don't think this is going to work for us." It is not that he harbors ill will. Rather, he has predetermined that the collision of unmitigated emotion with his well-engineered coldness would ultimately lead to chaos, a chaos he is determined to avoid at all costs. Despite this, many avoidant men do not relish their own defenses. Behind the veneer of self-reliance lies an echo of regret, a subtle longing for the possibility of a connection so profound that it transcends the barriers he has erected. There is a wistful irony in their narrative. The very mechanisms designed to protect them from the pain of vulnerability are also the ones that prevent them from experiencing its healing potential. It is as though they have been caught in a timeless cycle, one in which the fear of being overwhelmed by emotion guarantees that they remain isolated, even as they secretly wonder what it might be like to truly open their hearts. In the art of self-protection, the avoidant man walks a solitary path. Every carefully crafted defense, every dismissive comment, and every swift exit from emotional turmoil is a step taken to safeguard a fragile core. Yet, paradoxically, these same actions ensure that the true warmth of human connection remains just out of reach. And so, while the avoidant man may continue to wear his cold exterior like armor, there lingers beneath it a quiet, unspoken hope that one day he might find a way to lower his guard without risking his very soul. This, then, is the intricate tapestry of the avoidant man's inner world, a world where self-protection is both a blessing and a curse, an elegant, albeit tragic reminder that the quest for emotional safety can sometimes confine us more tightly than any chains ever could.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.